Hello, everybody, and welcome to our BigCommerce chat. This is a great topic today. We're talking e-commerce and CBD, two very buzzy words right now, but this is some serious business we're talking about today. I'm joined by Shane Barker. Please give your hellos to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
And then we have Jolene. We're excited. I've been doing a little Instagram stalking of you, Miss Fabulous. So we're so excited to have you as part of the chat today as well.
So nice to meet you in person too. I know I was totally going over your Instagram. I'm like, I get to be on a show with this girl. Yay.
I mean, Shane, we know you do a little internet stalking too.
I know. That's what's funny is I was like, I get to be on with two supermodels. I'm like, I don't know how I got on this, but I'm like, for somehow this happened. So lucky me.
We should have Shane's video in the middle, maybe.
Absolutely. And if you're joining us for the first time, I'm Sue Brazel. It is my absolute pleasure to host these chats for BigCommerce. So let's get right into it. CBD. Now, what are some of the products and benefits that are in the market? What should people know if they're just going, okay, where do I begin? What is CBD? What are people doing with it?
Wow.
You want to start, Jolene? I know you're Mrs. CBD influencer, and I'll jump in on some of the different products that are there. But I know you've tested. I know firsthand because I have you on my website as the #1 CBD influencer. I know you've tested. I don't know how many products out there. So why don't you start, and then I'll chip in where needed.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and this is a great question, Stuart, because CBD is one of those words. I think everybody's heard of it by now, but it's still kind of got that stigma. It's like, oh, is it going to get me high? What does it really do? So I have actually, as Shane says, I think I've worked with, well, over 100 brands I've personally worked with. And I've actually been in contact with about 350 brands because a lot of those brands are just not good. And I think it's difficult for consumers to know what is a good brand, what's not, what to look for. So that's a perfect question. But I just want to go quickly into like, what does actually CBD do? Because there's a lot of claims out there and people can get confused. Everything from the two main things I see CBD being used for is pain relief and anxiety, relaxation, that sort of thing. But CBD actually impacts our entire body. So a simple way to think about it is the endocannabinoid system, which is the receptors and what actually functions in the body. That is like a skin over top of all of our other bodily functions. So if that's out of balance, everything else can go a little bit wacky. So CBD just basically, if you want to remember one thing, it's going to help get your body back into balance. And it's regardless of where it's at, it's going to balance it out.
And I think the other thing about that is, first of all, Jolene, it's brains and beauty. We do appreciate that. I was like, I'm trying to think, I'm like cannabinoids. I didn't think I was going to be able to even say that out loud.
I can barely say that word and no.
Yeah, and do not ask me to spell it. But I think that's the other thing too about CBD is that there's a lot of different types of CBD. What I mean by that is different ways that you can take it. They have tinctures, they have edibles, there's isolates, there's capsules, you can vape. There's a lot of different things about it. And I think the important thing to realize is that people have different ways that like to take CBD, right? And so it depends on what you like. Some people like capsules because it feels like it's a vitamin. Some people like tinctures because it's a faster process with getting in your system. There's a lot of things you can kind of look at when it comes to CBD, but I think the important fact, and Jolene touched on this, is that, it's safe. This is going to be something that it doesn't get you high. Obviously, there's some state regulations and federal regulations that we're looking at, and we'll probably talk about later on in the show. But at the end of the day, it is safe, and I think people are becoming a better understanding how it helps you when it comes to your body and how you can use it. And once again, the good things that can happen when it comes to pain, anxiety, and then other things. And like I said, we'll probably talk about this as we kind of push on.
Yeah. And the cool
You're
thing
so right about that. Oh, I was going to say, it's so funny because I was working with the CBD brand, and it's CBD made for women, by women. And I posted, I take my CBD gummy in the morning, and some of the DMs I got back on Instagram stories were like, how do you take care of your kids? How do you drive? And I mean, the misconception is still so crazy. So I love that you're both talking about that because I do think it is so important. And I know that we'll, get a little bit further on that. And Jolene, I know you'll keep dropping your wisdom bombs, but I love to talk a little bit about like, what do you think are some of the exciting opportunities for e-commerce businesses, both established and emerging in CBD?
Why don't you start, Shane, then I'll fill that in for you.
I mean, I got to be honest with you, and there's so many different places to start. I mean, you think about, you can be a CBD distributor, you can be start a podcast, you can be a marketer, you can do reviews, you could open a CBD restaurant, you can open a cafe. There's cosmetics, there's pet products, topicals. I mean, once again, there's probably 20 or 30 different things that you can do in regards to the CBD space. I think the important part for you to think about, we're going to talk about this a little later, is exactly the competition. What are you going to be looking at when it comes to competition and who you're going to be competing with? And really, I think it's also another thing is which one would you be more passionate about, right? Obviously, there's profit that's going to be a factor, but what is something that you could take on and say, hey, listen, this is something that I really want to do. It's going to be pets because, I know pets go through a traumatic thing during 4th of July, and it's going to be great for pets to use CBD. Or what are you looking at? Like, what would be something that you could jump on saying, hey, I know the benefits of CBD and how it can help people. And once again, it could be something that you could either make side money at, or it could be something that you do full time.
I think that's key too, is really determining what is your niche, because there are so many brands out there. And I'm always shocked because I probably get at least 10 emails a day from CBD brands wanting to partner together and researching them and figuring out, are they good quality? But a big thing for me too is, what is their mission statement? Does it align with what I'm all about? Because we can all make money, but like, let's do it ethically and help people and actually have a really good product. So I think, like Shane was saying, finding your niche, what are you passionate about? Because it's going to be work. And if you have the story behind it, that can help to differentiate you from all the other brands too.
Yeah, I was cracking up. There's like a trend right now. It's like, it doesn't matter where you're going. There's CBD in your shampoo, CBD in your hand sanitizer, CBD in your face cream, your body wash. Then you're going, okay, it's too much. And I think a lot of people are really jumping on this trend. And what you said, Julian, I think is important. It's like, everyone is saying CBD, but it's not really true. It's just hemp, or there's a lot of red tape with what actually is. And there are a lot of people just saying CBD and they're not doing it the right way. Right. I mean,
I think it's an education thing too, right? I think that's the issue, is that people still assume that it's cannabis and that there's something related there, or there's something there. Or once again, as you said, I mean, people are getting a hold of you in your DMs like, I can't believe you're doing drugs with your kids. And you're like, well, how are you going to drive? You're like, well, I'm in my spaceship, like the kids ship. I mean, what would you think? Like, it's just, obviously that we're joking here, but yeah, who drives? We float. Like, isn't that what we do on CBD? No, all joking aside, I think there's a lack of education. And one thing that I think means a lot to me, because I work with a lot of influencers, especially like Jolene, is to really understand what the product's all about. I think that's, whether you're CBD or any product, great, you're getting a paycheck from it. That's awesome. But is it something you can stand behind? And I know a lot of influencers, when I work within the industry, in the beginning, it was like, it's a paycheck. And I'm like, well, but eventually that's going to fade out. And is it something that you can recommend, right? Is that something you can put behind? And CBD, not all CBD is the same, right? There's different qualities and there's different things and things that they're doing and claims they're putting out there. So it's like anything. You have to be able to look into it. If your shampoo says that, it's going to make your hair grow back and you believe that, then that's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are the claims? And once again, is that something you could put behind your name?
Right.
And it's kind of like, this industry is still kind of like the Wild West. I think we're going to talk about regulations as well too, but I've been doing this full time for 4 years, working with CBD brands. And it hasn't changed that much with how people are making claims that aren't substantiated, when you have to be able to back up what you are actually saying. And it's not snake oil. So I think we still have a ways to go before it is more regulated. And I'm actually a fan of some regulations, because then we can start to actually say, what does the product do, instead of having to be a little more vague and worry about getting fines or shut down. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but I like, that's Wild West all the way. I mean, it is, as consumers. So as Shane said, I've worked with a lot of CBD brands. So I'm a bit of a CBD expert, but it took me a long time to get comfortable with what's the dosage. Every product is different. They're labeled differently. Like, how do I take it? When do I take it? What does it do? And right now it's really on the consumer to do their own research and to figure out what works best for their body. So it's a lot right now. Education is like, wow, we need a lot of education for sure.
So I just wanted, for those of you watching, we are taking your questions live, so you can throw those in the chat on Facebook, and then I can present them to Shane and Jolene. So be sure to ask questions. So, we're kind of leading up to the challenges that businesses are facing. So what do you think are their biggest challenges in the CBD space, in the e-commerce space, and what are your tips for them?
I'll jump in here. I think, it comes to being a CBD merchant, we run into Some of the issues, once again, thinking it's cannabis, thinking that it's, drug related, is payment issues, right? I think it becomes a situation where, I know because I've worked in the cannabis industry, helping, early on in the industry in Colorado and other states. And once again, becomes payment issues become a situation because if it's illegal federally, then, you collecting money, there can be a situation there. So CBD in some states are still in that category. So that can be obviously an issue. You don't want to sell all kinds of product and then have your bank account not be able to take the money out of your bank account. I also think
I've actually had
market,
a couple, just to interject quickly, I've had a couple brands I've worked with who have said they had their accounts shut down and they had money in them, lots of money, and they just were struggling to access their money that they had made. So yeah, to Shane's point, it does happen.
Yeah, it is a challenge. And once again, you can tell them, hey, it's a CBD company and they can either get it or not get it. But as long as it's still in a category, once again, depending on what state you're in and if it's legal federally or not, that becomes a little bit of an issue, right? Or becomes a big issue if it's your money, right? I mean, obviously that's your working capital. I also think saturated markets, understanding that there's some of these, if you're going in brand new into the CBD market, there's other places that have already had these markets that have been up and have been flourishing. Not to say there's not an opportunity there. If there's always those little niche markets. You don't have to sell $1 million. You can figure out, Stuart, you were talking about it. It's a female-based product made for women. That's a niche, right? That's an area that you can go in. That's going to be. You don't have to have 1 million people buy it. Of course, that would be nice. But at the end of the day, you have a little niche product, and you can kind of build a good community around that. It doesn't need to be millions of people. I think also consumer concerns over quality, right? Over merchants, and hey, what kind of testing does it go through? Is it put through certain regulations? And we're seeing a lot of that, as Jolene touched on, that you want a certain quality of product, right? But that's with anything. With anything that you would take, I would assume that you would want the best quality. And so now we're starting to see more regulations and people saying, hey, I need to know what kind of quality this is, right? Because I didn't see it be made. We have formed a fork, right? So you have a situation, you have food, we know where it comes from. There we go. Right. Now we're looking at this and saying, hey, how do I know that this, came from this and came from here? And what are we looking at here? What are the risks of this if I have a bad product? Well, the regulations are helping that. And we're going to touch on this later, but I think like an unclear target market too. It's like not understanding who you're selling the products to. That's whether it's CBD or any product, right? You have to know who you're going to go after. It's Stuart, in your example, obviously they're going heavy after women, women-owned business. Great, we know who we're going after, right? We're not going after the male market because we're saying it's empowerment, right? So I think that's what you have to figure out with any product, but CBD definitely being one of those.
I definitely find too, a lot of the brands I've worked with, I always ask, what is your differentiator? And a lot of times they say, well, it's the best on the market. Like, well, you can say that, but once again, what, do you have a mission or you have a story behind it? Do you have, I like to look for a certificate of COA, certificate of analysis as well, because then you can really, it's third party verified, so you can tell what's actually in it. So they can say one thing, but someone else has actually said, okay, this is true, what they're saying. So I think that's important. And then the major issues I've had, or that brands have had that I've worked with, they kind of have two things that come up a lot. Like Shane said, the payment issue is a big thing. Because a lot of times I've had some say, as soon as it comes into whichever processor they're using or whichever account, they immediately have to take it out because they're scared it's going to get shut down. So that's like kind of no way to run a business. And then the marketing aspect, oftentimes you can't pay for ads or it's very difficult to be able to say what you want to say. So there's a lot of struggles and challenges for the people selling CBD for sure.
I just put up a TikTok video and they took it down. They flagged it. And it's the same thing. I know it's with the payments just because it has it's associated with THC, even though, it's not a drug like we were talking about. I was like, oh my God, my TikTok got flagged. I was like, that's okay. You cannot post about CBD on TikTok. That's a big deal to be regulated on social media, So talking about that, the red tape that businesses are facing, how does a platform like BigCommerce make things easier for merchants to make sure that if someone buys their product, they're getting their money?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, BigCommerce, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an expert on the panel today, they do a phenomenal job of understanding an industry that can be challenging and how to make it really easy for you. I mean, that's the reason we're talking about this today, is because, what happened 2 years ago, what's happening a year ago, what's happening now 3 months ago is very different than some of the stuff that Jolene's talking about. That could have been stuff that happened a little while ago, or that could be because you're not using the right platform, right? Or not using the right process, the payment processor. So I think that's what's important is BigCommerce is what they do, and they do a very great job at doing that, is taking the headache away, right? They have a lot of different processors you can use. They have what we call high risk processors, which means that they're used to CBD is high risk only because of, it's legal some places and it's not legal in other places. So it's not high risk as in the product's high risk, but the perception of what it is, right? So there's high risk processors that you can obviously get. You can tell them exactly what you're doing. When we started doing this, when I started working with CBD and also cannabis companies, they couldn't tell the banks what they were because they would instantly they couldn't do processing. So now it's coming to a situation. It's like, it's better to be honest and kind of tell them what's going on. But BigCommerce has made it so I always say that it's stupid easy. So they look at all the potential pitfalls and the things that can happen, and they want to take care of that ahead of time so that you don't have to deal with that. And so I even know, I might be touching on this too early, and I don't know if you guys, BigCommerce is going to get mad about this, but they're actually coming out with a book here soon, like an ebook on exactly how to put together your CBD business. And I might be saying that a little too early. Maybe I'm not supposed to tell people that, but either way.
Breaking in here, Shane? I love breaking news.
That's it. This would probably be the last time you guys see me because they're going to be like, you were not supposed to tell anybody. And I'm like, listen, I can't keep it a secret. I get really excited. I do apologize. So that will also help once again, I think, when it comes to, how you market your CBD business, how you put that together, I think, and also the processors that you can use, the payment processors, because once again, that's the last thing you need is, working hard and you're making all this money, life is good. And then all of a sudden your working capital's gone. And then what do you do?
And we had a question that was about that. I want to say that they wanted to know if there are multiple payment options. Yeah. Alexis, does BigCommerce offer multiple payment vendors?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely do. They have a lot of different options there, and they'll tell you the ones that will do CBD. And obviously it can be different from state to state. But once again, BigCommerce does a great job of looking at what the issues are, taking care of those issues, because they don't want to pass those issues to you. They want to pass the solution to you. So they do a great job of figuring out what that solution is and bringing it to you so you don't have to worry about it. They say, hey, these are the risks if you're using this. This is how you do it, and this is how you should set things up. And that way, once again, it makes it a lot easier. I feel like the old dad, like the dad that was like, I used to go, I walk up the snow every day, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like you guys are going to be like the kids that are like, oh, Dad, you're so funny. You're like, I remember when I did CBD 2 months ago, it was so hard. And like, I'm using BigCommerce. Like, oh, it's so much easier. It's not even a challenge anymore. So I think we're there with BigCommerce.
But I do think like Shopify, there was a problem with Shopify, right? They kicked off all their CBD merchants from their own in-house payment gateways. Like, good.
What's Shopify?
I don't know. I heard someone say that word, but I feel like we shouldn't say it out loud.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
We don't like to talk about them anymore.
Yeah. I know. That did happen. So that definitely is. That's not fake news. That absolutely did happen. There was some issues there, and so I think, once again, BigCommerce looks at other things that happen and they're looking for solutions, right? They don't want you to have to deal with those problems, because that's the whole point, is they want to make it really easy for you to be able to use the platform. And when you go into a challenging industry like CBD, once again, challenging only because of the perception of it, some of those things come up, and BigCommerce is great at taking that headache away from you and making it easy.
And I think about a lot of, as a CBD influencer, I was going to say, you're a customer, right? You're on Jolene's page. You're looking at the CBD products. You want to get what she has. You pay for it, and then you're not able to get the product that you want. How does this affect the customers that are looking for pain maintenance or, overall zen?
And that's tough too, because a lot of these CBD companies that are starting up, I mean, any startup, it's pretty bare bones. Like, how many people do you have? Maybe one or two. I work with a lot of husband and wife teams that are starting it up. And I actually, back when I was working corporate, I was director of marketing for a couple of supplement companies, and we had a whole team just doing marketing, let alone legal, let alone payments and everything. So these companies that are trying to get in the door, that have, like I say, the great mission, we want them to succeed, and then they're stopped because maybe the website is too confusing or the payment processor is too much work. Like, there's only so much time in the day to do it all and do it right too.
Yeah, that's a really big issue. I think it's just with being an entrepreneur. It's like, out of the 500 things that you need to learn, I'll give you the example. You have the chef that goes in as a phenomenal chef, and he says, I want to open a restaurant. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about accounting. Let's talk about, state permits. Let's talk about this. And like, whoa, I just make a really good filet. Like, why am I dealing with all this other stuff? It's the same thing with this, right? When you jump in the CBD industry, or any industry, supplements, whatever that is, you become the treasurer, the secretary, the president, you're the janitor, you're everything. And so anytime you can take, let's say, the e-commerce, right, take that headache away, or take compliance away, or take payments away those kind of headaches because somebody else has already figured that out for you. Then you can focus in on the branding, and then you can focus in on the marketing. You can focus on other things that really where you should be spending your time instead of these other things that could be a potential headache.
And then Shane, what do you think is a good place to start for a digital marketing strategy for these, the BigCommerce, e-commerce, CBD brands here? What should they do?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, and I touched on this a little earlier, is just understanding your target market. Like, who are you going after? So, we and Jolene also said this earlier. It's like, oh, what makes you unique? And you're like, oh, we're just the best in the world. And it's like, okay.
And what else?
So yeah, and so is there anything else other than being the best in the world? Because the last company I just got an email from is also the best in the world. I don't know if you know that.
It makes me think of the Elf movie where Will Ferrell's like, it's the world's best cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee's terrible.
There's got to be something else, right? Like, you got to figure that out. The other thing I think is important is what we do is looking at competitors, right? This is very basic, but I think we have to look at is you have to understand what we do. It's called a SWOT analysis, where you have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I think the important part about that is understanding what you're good at, right? If you're putting this together, and we look at all the things that need to be done. Obviously, BigCommerce takes a lot of those headaches away, but you have to look at what you need to do to be able to, what market you're going after. And then once again, what kind of opportunities are there when looking at competitors and saying, hey, we can do the same thing, but we can do it better, or we'll niche down, we'll have a little bit of a different market. Once again, what does that look like? Looking at competitors, that's not new for anybody starting a business. That's a good place to start because they've spent money and time and resources to be able to do something. And you have to assume that the campaigns they're putting together, if they've been around for a long time, that there's some success in that. The other thing I would take a look at is, once again, what makes you unique? We call it the UVP, or the unique value proposition. Why would somebody want to buy you over anybody else, right? There's 1,000 CBD options. Why would I want to pick your product over somebody else's? Assuming all the claims are the same, right? And so that's what we have to look at is like, what is one, either A, for branding purposes, and what makes me different than the next one, but also what is your Jolene touched on this, is what do you want the world to know? Like, what are you trying to get out there? What is important for, it's you give 10% of your money that comes from the CBD goes to an orphanage, goes to something. Like, what is that? What is the thing that you want the world to know that you're going to be helping, or you're going to be doing something bigger than just what you've got going with CBD? Like, what are your goals, right? What are we looking at there? So I think that's important. And then also, if you're, a merchant starting, this is a very engaging website, right? We talk about testimonials with people. We have, if you worked with influencers in the past, what are you doing? And this is not only CBD, but I think all markets. What are you doing to convince people? What is the social proof? When somebody comes to your website, does it feel warm? Feels like it's an inviting environment? It talks about what CBD is. It has some good testimonials. It talks about where you've been featured. It has a video explaining exactly what CBD is, how it's different than cannabis or whatever that is. Like, what are you doing to educate people and make people feel more comfortable about making the right decision on your website?
Mm-hmm. And I think some good behind the scenes, like I know from certain brands, and the one that I recently worked with, I like seeing, okay, here we are at an organic farm in Colorado, and we're going to, when you get to go along in the adventure and really see these products come to life and get to meet the founders and the people making it, I think that really sets you apart as well.
Having a human element to that, I think is key. It really is, because once again, it still has this stigma. So if you're like a behind the scenes and you got kind of like dark colors and stuff, and it's like, oh, you're jumping into the CBD underground world, and it's not that, right? Like, these are mom and pops, as Jolene talked about. These are mom and pops that start these businesses. It's for legit reasons. They're not like an underground, hemp farm that they're like have kids working there. It's like it's a business, right? This is something, and a lot of people use it because of the therapeutic benefits of it. So that's what's important is, and I think once again, we talk about CBD or other things that you do if you're a pizza place. I think it's important to show that human side of things, that we're humans and this is what we're doing, especially in the CBD because of the stigmas that are there.
And I think
we've got a question
too.
Go ahead, Jolene, and then I'll grab Spencer's question after that.
Okay, yeah, so the expectations are huge too. It's like we say, making these claims is one thing, but really laying out, that's one thing I think I find a little lacking in the industry that I try to do as well with the education, is what to expect when taking the product. Like, you're not going to take, I've got my CBD bottle right here. You're not going to take it once and immediately everything is going to go away forever. So letting people know how to dose it, how often to take it. Once again, just like it sounds so simple, but I think that's really important. And if a brand were to really do that, I think that would be huge, to be like the go-to place for education, the trusted brand, this is how you take it. This is when you take it. This is why you take it. If you have this, take it this way. So that hasn't really been laid out yet that I've seen anyway. It's just very, very simple, yet relatable, usable tips.
So an educational factor. So Spencer wants to know, where do you see the CBD industry in 5 to 10 years?
Wow, I love that. It's not even a year out. He's like, what is the
graphs
future?
are like
future,
this already.
future?
The last 4 years, the graphs are going up like that.
Yeah, I think it's only going to get bigger. We're going to have, federal. I think federally it's going to be fine, and then it's going to be all the states are going to open it up. And you have to realize CBD, as Stuart touched on, can be put in anything, right? It can be a supplement, it can be a patch, it can be for your dogs and cats, it can be in restaurants and cafes, it could be in food, it could be in drinks, it can be literally everywhere. And I think it's not like there's only 3 things that it can go with. Like, it can go with a number of different things. And I think that's what's interesting about it is now, once we have 50 states and maybe the world at one point is opened up to the CBD thing, like it's only going to go, we already have a hockey stick growth that Jolene was talking about. It's only going to just keep going up in that direction because you're going to have more things opening up. People are going to better understand why you can use CBD and the fact that it's not a drug, that you're not getting high, that it's a situation where what you're doing is it can be for health benefits, but once again, it's like supplements. It's going to take a while. You don't expect to take 2 drops and then all of a sudden you turn into Superwoman and you work out 10 hours a day. Like, it's not that, right? You have to figure out what is that, how many you're going to take, and what does that runway look like to be able to, once again, feel better.
Do you feel like there's growth in a certain area? Like Jolene, I know that the beauty market is, oh my goodness. And I feel like it's, at least here in Los Angeles, it's, would you like some CBD oil in your smoothie? Would you like it in your coffee? So I think we're seeing it more in the food and beverage. What about other areas that we should keep our eyes on? I know pets, we talked about that, Shane.
Yeah, my puppy loves it. And there's a lot of great health benefits. Like we talked about, CBD literally impacts almost every cell in our body, every one of our major systems, from immunity to digestion, skin health. And one thing I like to talk about too, so my background is nutrition, like natural stuff. So I don't like to put chemicals on my skin. I like it to be all natural. Anything that you put on your skin is absorbed almost the same as if you're eating it. So when you think about using CBD on your skin, it's pretty cool because it does have a lot of, who isn't after like glowing skin, right? So to put it on your skin in combination with a great product, or even just on its own, I think the beauty industry is just getting started when it comes to CBD. And especially as we're getting more studies out, and I'm all about science-backed research, I think it's just going to keep growing and growing. So the beauty industry, obviously the topicals are great. I mean, when I work out, I'd notice topicals are cool. I notice an immediate difference if my muscles are sore from a different workout. Within 5 minutes, I usually do notice. So we've got, the tinctures. I mean, there's so many different options. I think CBD could go in almost everything, to be honest.
I'm curious if the travel industry will start incorporating it more. I feel like that could be a new sweet spot as well.
Like on an airplane?
Airplanes, when you check into your hotel, the toiletries. Right now it's kind of, maybe they'll have like a CBD massage, but I feel like there's a lot of room for growth and there could be some excitement there.
I think, another thing is experiences. And what I mean by that is coming in and I saw this once again in the cannabis industry, where you would go into Denver and you would build out an experience where they would have food and drinks and that were either infused, but the same thing with CBD. I could see that being the same thing. You have a CBD massage, you come in, it's CBD infused, I say food, right? Maybe a drink or something that also has CBD in it. And once again, depends on the levels of CBD that you're going to have. But I feel like that's the food market to me is like, it's so untapped because it can be legal in a certain state, but it can, in certain counties or states or cities, it's not legal to be able to have it like in foods and drink. Like when I was in Austin, Texas, that was the first time I had had it actually in a drink. They were like, "Hey, you want some CBD in your mocha?" And I was like, "Let's rock!" Like, why not? Why not? Of course, it was a $20 mocha, and I never paid $20 for a mocha, but it was super tasty, And I walked an extra 3,000 steps or something. I don't know, it was awesome. But yeah, I think the food. Yeah, go ahead.
People are starting to drink less alcohol these days too. Often it's kind of the younger generation alcohols. I mean, our generation, I think we don't want martinis. Right. But the younger people that I'm speaking with are more about using CBD instead of, say, wine, or CBD infused dealcoholized wine. That's a tough one too. But just having those different options if you want to maybe relax a bit or connect or whatever the purpose is, and feel great the next day. So I think what Shane was saying, the food and beverage is huge too.
So question from Megan. She wants to know, is it easier to open an online CBD store or brick and mortar? And where will the business grow fastest?
So I think, so this is the thing. I think brick and mortar probably is going to have might be well, this is the thing. So if you're in a certain area that it's legal, then obviously you can do that. Obviously there's going to be a lot more cost with the brick and mortar, right? It's just with permits and everything and opening the store. And, I think what you'd want to do is test the location. So what I would recommend is probably starting with an online, generating some revenue there. And if you see that you have your store is doing great worldwide, but you're in, let's say, Austin area, and all of a sudden your sales are really good, you see a lot of people buying in the Austin area, then maybe that's a test. You can start with what I would do is I would go into a place that has a boutique, maybe start selling your products there, see how well it goes, and then go and open, the 800 square foot spot. Because, you just got to be careful. You got to make sure that the market is there. And I think it is there. You don't want to jump in and open a big brick and mortar, because once again, there's heavy cost entailed there. And the online space, if you can market it correctly, the world's your oyster, right? We have all kinds of places, assuming that you can ship at this point. By the, in a year or two, whatever, you're gonna be able to ship everywhere. But right now, you got to figure out, make sure you're going to be able to ship.
And I wonder if she's talking about her own brand or about being a distributor for multiple other established brands.
Yeah, feel free to drop another follow-up for Jolene if you have more details on what you're thinking for your digital business or brick and mortar. And then Shane, talk to me about, does BigCommerce have any recommended partner agencies for CBD that retailers can, use to leverage their website development, like anything going on there?
Yeah, they. I feel like I'm the one this just in. Hey, we have Groove Commerce actually. BigCommerce have just done a big thing. They've actually partnered with them, and that's going to be kind of the back end of the BigCommerce thing. And so I think, in case you haven't heard of Groove Commerce, you definitely should probably go Google it or take a look at them. They've been in the space for a long time, and so I think the value of that is, when you have somebody like BigCommerce that's making it once again easy for you on the e-commerce side, and then you have Groove Commerce that's coming in with the expertise in the CBD space. I don't think it gets any better than that. It's always nice to have more hands on deck to, especially in a space like this, and be able to once again kind of pave the way.
And I want to say they're offering a complimentary CBD website on it, right?
Yeah, they're doing that because obviously it's, the key to this thing is sales, right? And we want to be able to get sales. And so a lot of people, marketing is not always the easiest thing to do, right? And so I think it's always nice to have another set of eyeballs. Historically, when you build a site, you're like, oh, I built a site. And like any clients that we've worked in, like, hey, we don't ever have to jump back on it for like 5 years. This is awesome. I have our site up. And I'm like, well, what about, let's take a look at it. And they're like, oh, no, I don't. Are you doing any sales? No, I'm not doing any sales, but well, do you want me to audit it? And I'm like, well, probably should take a look at it. And then all of a sudden there's, certain things, there could be some basic things that can happen to it that can increase sales by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Right. And it's nice to have, an agency or, somebody that looks tons of these websites and saying, hey, there's some easy tweaks that we can do to your website to be able to assist in sales. And so I think, a free audit last time I checked is a pretty good price. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think free is pretty good last time I checked.
Yeah, so it's a 3-step process, and you can get that over at groovecommerce.com/CBD-audit. So be sure to check that out. Alexis wants to know, how can I get started with an online store?
If you're talking about BigCommerce, you can go to bigcommerce.com and click the sign up button and make magic happen. Obviously that's a start in regards to the e-commerce side of things. You'll have to figure out who the merchants are, who you want to work with, right? And wholesale rates, and there'll be other things that you have to do on the backside of that. But starting an e-commerce store on BigCommerce is not a challenge. They're in the business of making it easy for you. So I would reach out to them for sure.
It seems like it really takes away the barrier to entry too, because I think a lot of people have this idea, but then it's tough to implement. But I love that idea. That
I know you want to do something, and then sometimes you're like, it's just too hard, and we want to succeed. Sometimes we need platforms like BigCommerce, businesses like BigCommerce, to make us able to, go for it. Go for that, whether it's a side hustle or you're just trying to elevate your brand or launch new products. And I think that's just from our conversation, that is what is so exciting about CBD. And from talking to you two, it's not too late to get in. Like, there is still space for you.
Yeah, think about it. If there's X amount of states that it's not legal, and when it becomes legal, guess what? There's your opportunity. So there's tons of opportunity in this space. It is, I mean, it can be saturated in certain areas, but once again, there's, I mean, how many different products can you put CBD in? We talked about 15 or 20 of them at this point, right? And none of those markets are saturated, so you can't have a barrier to entry and where people can't get in. Like, you can put things up on BigCommerce. It's simple, easy to do. You find a merchant, or you find somebody that you want to work with, a wholesaler, and you can make magic happen. Like, that's not, especially if you have marketing skills, or a free audit. Last time I checked, that's not too bad in itself.
And plus, the sooner you start, the better.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, it's, this idea 10 years later.
Should CBD merchants consider? What should they be focusing on right now, do you think?
Like, I mean, like what types? Go ahead, Jolene.
Product offerings,
I was gonna ask what, like the modalities, or the beauty products? Are we talking about, do you want to do tinctures versus gummies, or
all of the above?
I think it really, no, I don't think, I know. It really depends, kind of going back to the niche. What are you passionate about? What do you personally use yourself? I'm assuming people getting in the industry have experience using CBD. And so me personally, I prefer tinctures. I'm not really much of a gummy person, but then again, I don't really like sweets that much. So if I were to get in the industry, I am into beauty and wellness. And so I would probably do a CBD skincare and a tincture, and I would create some sort of a dual packaging and the whole experience that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what I talk about too is self-care. So for me personally, that's my passion, that's my experience. I would go in that realm, and I would really get creative on how can I market these all together and package them together in a different sort of way that necessarily hasn't been done, or it's got my own spin on it. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, once again, I think Jolene touched on it. It's like, I think a lot of the times it's not absolutely necessary, but I think it's important that, a lot of times businesses are started out of a problem that somebody has. And so if you have an issue with anxiety, you have an issue with something, and you take, gummies or whatever that is, and you start to feel better and good things happen, then maybe that's where, because you're going to be your best advocate, right? Like, you're that first testimonial. And if you can personally vouch for the products and say, hey, listen, I had some issues with anxiety, had issues with this, and I was able to take this product, and the reason I'm selling it is because it's that impactful. It's changed my life that much. Then there's huge value in that, right? I mean, I think you kind of need to be a customer, not every time, but it's important if you are a customer, it's, then you're vouching for something that you're giving your personal experience. Nobody can take that away from you. You can say, not everybody gets these results, but I can tell you when I took it, the reason I'm starting this business is because of X, Y, Z. And I think there's a lot of value in that for sure.
I love that. We have a question from Amit. He says, tactically, how are you seeing successful CBD brands acquire customers at a profitable CPA, especially considering all of the restrictions on advertising platforms?
That's good. You can tell Amit's a marketer. I love that. He's like, CBD, CPA, all the restrictions and advertising platforms. Amit, I'm here for you, buddy. So there's a number of different ways. Obviously, it's very difficult on Facebook. I don't think you can do it actually on Instagram. Instagram, you can't advertise with them, but you can absolutely post about products. Yeah, you can absolutely post about it. So that's good. So we have these things called influencers. I think Jolene might know an influencer. I gotta think. Oh wait, she is an influencer.
Both of us, yeah.
That's right, both. And Stuart.
I'm going to Jolene this way.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like a Wonder Woman right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, influencers are a key way, because once again, I think the big thing, and Jolene touched on this, is you want to pick an influencer that really believes in your brand. Because if it's just a paycheck, then everybody can get a paycheck and take a picture of a gummy in their mouth and say, oh my God, this is great. And then they move on, to the next product. You want to, with what your goals and your values are, I think that's important. And you want the influencer to, once again, to resonate with that and be able to push the product, maybe even not even in a paid situation after they got paid. It's like, hey, I continue to use this product, which I think is awesome. But you can do SEO. So there's also ways to, online for people looking up products online. You obviously, I don't think you can sell CBD stuff through Amazon yet, but I'm sure that market's going to be opening up. Or maybe you can, I think you can through CBD. I'll have to look into that with the Amazon thing. There's a lot of different ways. It is a little challenging because we're not doing it through the traditional ways of marketing. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. You can write articles about it. Once again, you can start a blog. You can do podcasting. I mean, that's, I know Jolene.
Videos. I put one up. That wasn't flagged. That's still alive and well.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. It's a little unorthodox. I mean, not unorthodox, but it's a little, people think the traditional way, since that's not available, that you can't market it. But there's absolutely there's still a lot of ways, and those other ways will open up over time as well.
Right.
And I think it levels the playing field as well, because other products, you can throw a ton of money and you're going to be ranked first on Google, right? But now it's really about what is the quality of content, back to the education, how useful is it, and the creativity factor. So like Shane was saying, you can do the blog post, you can repurpose it, put it on Instagram, hire influencers like us, and you can get really creative, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to really get the ball going too if you've got great content.
Yeah,
for sure.
the product will speak for itself. And I think too, and Jolene, I'm sure that you feel the same way. Affiliate marketing, when you're working with your influencers, that's a great motivator. You don't need to drop a bunch of coin, for something and then they never talk about you again. But affiliate marketing is motivational because the more they post, the more they sell, the more money the brand makes, the more money the influencer makes. So that's always good to inspire actual work and more long-term collaborations. So I think
and
that's
you can get creative too. I mean, I've had brands come to me and say, hey, we can't afford your rates, but this is our budget. What can we do? And if I really believe in the brand, I will try to meet them where they're at. And you can get, I've been paid in products before with a brand that I super, super loved and I still use. So you can just get so creative, and it's a win-win for everybody. We're in the stage now where anybody can win, but it's just kind of finding that right partnership and making it work together.
Yeah.
Right. And don't think about not talking to your friends and stuff, because sometimes it's just the friends, and your friends are also influencers. They tell a friend, it's 2 people here, 3 people here, like that small word of mouth. Someone might have 500 Instagram followers, but if they're the right followers, that's all that matters.
You know what? That's a great point too. Micro influencers, nano influencers.
Yeah, the ones that have smaller funds. The other thing to take a look at if you're a CBD merchant and you're watching this, one of the things that I tell people, and it blows their minds, and I mean this, not that it's the best idea in the world, but when I tell them, they go, oh my God, I didn't even think of this. If you're a brand and you have 500 followers, like instead of going out and trying to find new influencers, I'm not saying don't do that, you can do that, but look at the people that are currently following your brand, right? And what I would do is I would look at those people and see what kind of following they have. And if they have a great following, they're already following your brand. So you have to assume they like your product. And so I would reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed you've been following the brand. Look at historically what people have bought. And it looks like you've also purchased some products from us. Let's talk about either, once again, an affiliate type relationship. It can be money plus being paid on the back end, or an ambassador program where you send them free product. And they talk about the product. Like there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's some creative ways. Once again, finding influencers is awesome, but look at the people that are closest to you that are already advocates for your product and see what you can do to develop a deeper relationship there.
User-generated content is huge. If you see people organically tagging your brand, ask them, hey, I really love this. Can I repost this? Can I use this? I'll send you some free swag. That is a big motivator. Like you would be surprised what you can get just for asking permission. Don't just grab people's photos, ask permission, and then you can build a relationship. And if you are not scared of the camera, put yourself on camera. Let us get to know you. That's just so inspiring, and it just really builds that real connection. I feel like we've talked about so much fun stuff. Is there anything else that CBD merchants should think about? It's all about setting yourself apart, right? So we touched on these branded experiences. What type of branded experiences do you think are effective for CBD merchants to mention, to offer on their websites?
I mean, for me, I think, I think about like what I would want to feel if I was on a CBD website, because if you've never done CBD, then you really want to feel comfortable. You want to maybe feel like it's a healthy option, maybe not heavy selling, more of like a soft situation. What I mean soft is like it's not heavy selling. You kind of feel like, hey, this is kind of a warm place to be, and then it's safe, right? I mean, I think that's what we have to do if there's lack of education and somebody's like, I've heard some stuff, I've heard some people talk about it. You really have to make your site, once we talked about this early, educational. Maybe figuring out the 5 things that the misconceptions or the people that think that CBD is this, and go ahead and addressing those ahead of time. It's like the elephant in the room, and talking about that and saying, hey, I know that a lot of people think that CBD gets you high. I can tell you that it doesn't. I also say that we've heard this about CBD. Hey, let me go ahead and let you know this is what the truth is about that. Like kind of taking down their barriers to why they wouldn't purchase, and educating them and getting them to a point where they're like, okay, this seems like this is a good option, good testimonials, good things happen there. People that, reviews of the product to show that, once again, you're not the first person buying this. I think that will help people, once again, feel comfortable about buying.
I like that too. And I think offering a guarantee is a huge thing to do as well, because especially if they've never used CBD or aren't familiar with your brand, and we know there's so many different quality types out there. So just offering that money back guarantee, I think that's huge. It takes away a lot of the fear of buying the first time anyways.
Mm-hmm. And also, Jolene, you started talking about this a little bit earlier, but it was something that I learned recently through education preparing for a campaign that I recently worked on. CBD is something that it's effective when you take it every day, not just every once in a while, correct? And I think a lot of people don't know that it's something that you incorporate into your daily lifestyle. It's not associated with just, once a month, but if you take it daily, you can get benefits that are really incredible.
And that's the way a lot of natural supplements work. And CBD itself, it's fat loving. So what happens is it actually, it's better. That's why tinctures are made in a little bit of oil, because your body absorbs it better. And it actually, your body can store the CBD up as well. So the more you take it, the more you have it on reserve. And your body's not going to absorb in the receptors. It's not going to absorb more than what it needs. So it's going to store it. If you take too much, there's been no studies that show any bad effects. It's basically you're either going to kind of get rid of it or your body's going to store it for later use. Right. And that's where the whole balance comes in. It's the consistency is key, and it's going to help your body get back into balance wherever it's at.
And you don't just have to take it when you want to chill. Like, you could take it before a workout and you would be surprised.
Yeah, like I take it on a pretty much a daily basis just for overall wellness, because I never know. Like, I like to have a little bit of maybe a store inside my body, because what if next week is super stressful? I'm setting my body up for success to be able to deal with the stresses that happen in life. And when you think about it, nobody is ever perfectly balanced. Like, I just got my blood work done a couple of weeks ago, and I do live a healthy lifestyle. My blood work was great, but there are tiny little tweaks I could still make to get to more optimal health. So I think it depends. If you're going from a state of being unhealthy, you're going to want to get out of the pain, get out of wherever, and get back to being healthy. But even once you're healthy, you're going to want to keep going probably, and just keep on building up and living at a higher state of health.
It's about being proactive, not reactive, right? I mean, that's the thing. Usually the pain, the anxiety thing is you're being reactive to something that's going on. If you, once again, whether it's supplements, whether it's CBD, if you have a good regimen of what you're doing, once again, that's going to help you not only feel good, but it also is going to help you with your state of mind of knowing that you're, once again, you're going into this in a healthy state. I think it's important. Jolene's kind of the epitome of that. I've always been appreciative of that, of her, how healthy she is and how balanced. I'm like, I just need to get a little more balanced.
And think about it too. If you're taking it on a regular basis, thank you, Shane. But if you're taking it on a regular basis, you're going to be more mindful about other things in your life, right? So it's kind of that entourage effect where you're doing one thing differently, and it's going to start to slowly impact other parts of your life as well. And before you know it, you're going to have all these healthy habits that you weren't even necessarily aiming to get. But once you start feeling better, it's amazing. When I used to work as a nutritionist, once people kind of started to feel a little bit better, they're like, what else can I do? I'm ready. I'm going to do it. So I love to see that. And CBD, I think, is kind of a good gateway to get to being healthier.
Well, this has been such a wonderful live. Thank you both. Final thoughts. This will be a last call out for any questions, but final thoughts. Obviously, the big thing that we're talking about is, with BigCommerce, the payments are going to go through, the merchant's going to make money, the customer is going to get their product. To me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is the problem is everybody that's going to jump on, once we talk about this, people that jump on today aren't going to realize the issues that all these other merchants had before that. So you're just going to go into this and like, this is super easy. And you're like, no, it wasn't this way. And you're like, no, it really is super easy. And it's because you joined today, but before this, it wasn't that easy. So once again, shout out to BigCommerce for making it easy for them.
Absolutely. It's kind of not fair, because all the previous CBD brands have gone through all the struggle, and now it's wonderful because this solution is here. But like Shane was saying, if you jump on now, you're going to be that much further in advance once everything is legal and regulated. It's like, why not start now?
Yeah, well, I feel like from this talk, I learned so much too. It's like, if I want to launch my CBD, I know I can build my website on BigCommerce, launch it, have an account manager helping me out. We can get the product where it needs to go. Everything is just easy. And I think that just allows you to focus on your product and your passion. And I think with CBD, the passion is what's really going to shine through. And I think those will be the businesses that are the most successful when you believe in the product. I know everyone right now, it's like NFTs. We talked about, crypto on our last live, and it's easy to jump on the bandwagon, but if you're truly passionate, it's all the difference in the world.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you everyone for watching, and good luck with your CBD journeys and business launchings, and see you later. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Stuart.